Welcome to the podcast. We talk about all the things that are hidden in the shadows. This is Isaac. And on this bonus episode, I am joined by author Nick Pease, here to talk about his book Revelation and other things surrounding the paranormal. What's up, Nick? How's it going?
Hey, lovely to be with you, Isaac. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a real pleasure.
Yes. I read a few pages of your book and read the Cliff Notes, particularly have time. But reading from what I have, it's extremely interesting. Everything surrounding your story about scientific, or at least trying to find scientific proof of the afterlife and stuff like that, which is what I've talked about enormously all the time in different episodes about. One of my main hopes for the future is that science looks into the paranormal as much as any other form of studying, so it gets more credibility to everything that goes on. But
Absolutely.
If you could give a small overview of the book, so something that people don't particularly know about it.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's exactly the premise of the book. Is what if somebody could 100% prove scientifically that life after death is a fact? We don't have that proof, but what an incredible thing it would be if we could. Now, the book is a thriller. It's a real roller coaster ride. There's a lot of action in it, a lot of comedy, a lot of great characters. There's romance, there's everything. But essentially, it's a real roller coaster thriller. And what happens, I'll just give you a very brief resume of the book without giving too much away, is we have two great friends who are scientists, Jack and Marty, who are seconded to the CIA and working on a device called Revelation in Iraq during the war. And the idea behind the device is to reveal anything in its energetic format so that you can destroy improvised explosive devices, landmines, etc. So the basic idea behind Revelation is a good one because it could save many lives around the world. But the program fails and the CIA pull the plug on exploiting Revelation any further. But Jack and Marty are so into this idea of developing an energetic device by then that they squirrel away equipment. And when they return to Washington, D.C., they set up their own little kind of kitchen laboratory, as it were, in Marty's cabin, where they continue to experiment. And again, I'm not going to give too much away because Marty has ulterior motives for doing this, because he recognizes that if you can reveal things in that energetic format, then maybe it can reveal something else. And that's exactly what does happen, quite by accident, as indeed most scientific great discoveries are. They're usually complete accidents. They discover that life after death can be proven 100% as a scientific fact because Revelation reveals spirit beings. Now, this is where the thriller side of the book really kicks in, because Jack takes the discovery to his CIA mentor, who was head of station in Iraq, who has now risen to become chief of staff at the White House, thinking that his discovery will be welcomed and, it'll be great news around the world, only to find that those in power, be it political, religious, scientific, whatever it might be, there are those with vested interests who find Revelation a threat to their status quo and want it closed down and its inventors, in other words, eliminated. And this is where the roller coaster thriller kicks in. It's a real race to the finish to see whether Revelation can be brought into the public domain before both it and its inventors are destroyed. Again, I'm not going to give it away, but the book has a beautifully life-affirming conclusion. There's a lot of scientific fact in there. All the science that is in the book is the science as it's known of today. The religion in the book is of the day. I've got a degree in philosophy, so I've employed a lot of that in the book. I'm a spiritual medium, so I've employed a lot of that. And it's not a heavy read. I don't want to give the impression that, it's full of sort of facts and things. Quite the opposite. Everybody who's read it has said it's a remarkably fast, light read. It's short chapters, it's fast-paced, etc. But nevertheless, everything within it is absolutely rooted in modern-day knowledge, scientific fact, etc. And it poses that incredible question, which I think, as you rightly said, Isaac, at the start, is it in the front of a lot of people's minds. What if life after death could be proven absolutely as a scientific fact? I mean, at the moment, we have mediums who do their best to give evidence of a life on the other side. We have all kinds of things that can give us glimpses into that, but we don't have that absolute hard and fast scientific fact. So the device revelation proves it. And then the implications are, what would happen? Now, you and I might think, what a fantastic discovery. We would rejoice and we'd say, wow, that just proves everything we've already known. I mean, as a spiritual medium, I know it to be fact anyway, but generally speaking, in the outside world, we don't have that. So how would it be received? And that's why the book poses some quite deep questions, because it wouldn't all be rejoicing. There would be those who would find it a threat, whether it be to their political, religious, or whatever stance that they take. It would upset a lot of, the status quo of how things are at the moment. A lot of people wouldn't like it, and how would they react to that? So there's a lot of questions posed in the book, and I hope, and I have found that people who have read it have found it very, very thought-provoking. And just a fun read as well. But just there's enough meat in it to really make people think. And as I say, I bring all my lifetime's experience of being not just a spiritual medium, but having a degree in philosophy and having taken an interest in, and continue to take an interest in, scientific and religious development and the dichotomies between the two. And you employ all that in a thriller format. And I think I won't say it's unique, because that would be although I have to say I've never come across a book like that that can draw on that kind of knowledge and put it forward as a thriller and make people really think about these things in a very deep way. And as I say, everything referenced in it, whether it be the science or the philosophy or anything, is very much the knowledge of what we have in humankind today. So this is not science fiction. This is not just a make-believe. This is very much rooted in knowledge and fact, but just posing that question, okay, what if we go that one step further and we can prove it? So that's a very quick resume, Isaac, of what's it about.
That's awesome. Definitely intrigues me to read it all the way through for sure. But I was going to ask what inspired the book, but you kind of already answered that question.
Yes, I mean, as I say, I'm a spiritual medium, and I have had so many experiences of spirit beings throughout my life. It started when I was aged about 4 or 5 and set me on that path of just questioning about what this life is all about. Clearly for me, because I was able to hear them, then I was able to see them. It was just as much reality as you and I talking now. It's just for me, it's an absolute fact. But I totally accept that for a great many people, the majority who don't have those experiences, they won't necessarily accept it, and I wouldn't expect them to. I think skepticism is very, very good. I think it's a very positive thing, which is why, even though I'd had all these spiritual experiences, I went and studied and got a degree in philosophy, because there is no more forensic, analytical, skeptical analysis than philosophy. It puts everything under the microscope. The nature of existence. Is there a God? What are our 5 senses? What is outside of our 5 senses, etc., etc. And it fascinated me, and I wanted to have that skeptical knowledge behind me as well. I didn't want to just accept things that were happening to me. I wanted to really discover more about the nature of existence. And I'm a very different spiritual medium in that way. I'm not away with the fairies. I'm very much rooted in the real world. And I want evidence for everything that I see here or whatever. And then, of course, allied to that, you can't go down that route without taking into cognizance the religions of the day. So I've studied religions and the scientific developments of the day. And that's what I find fascinating. I'm by no means a scientist. I wouldn't claim to be. But what fascinates me is the way science is more and more getting into exploring the nature of our universe and the fact that everything is made up of energy. And Isaac, you alluded to this in your introduction. It's the fact that ever since Einstein, and in fact going even back beyond that to Max Planck, quantum physics, etc. We know the whole universe and everything, including you and I, are made up of energy. And we also know, as Einstein rightly proved, energy cannot be destroyed. This is the fascinating thing, because those who are attuned to spirit know that they exist on an energetic level, just as you and I do, but we're on quite a dense level of energetic vibration. Earth is as well, which is why spirit communication can actually be quite difficult, with the whole subject in itself. But that fascinates me, because the more science is exploring energy, the closer they're becoming to recognizing that there are other dimensions around and about us. And that's what revelation is about, because revelation is a device, a machine that can explore the energetic vibrations of everything, the frequencies around us, and pick up other dimensions like the spirit worlds. And it's not just one world, obviously, it's many. So it fascinates me. This is what led me into it. So revelation is a combination of all that knowledge, all that exploration, a lifetime of really delving. And I continue to be on that quest, to put it into and wrap it up in the format of a thriller and present it to people and say, you're probably fascinated by life after death. Most people are. A lot of people will be skeptical about it and not accept it. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Others will have very particular religious beliefs or come at it in different ways. Some will be complete agnostic, won't believe in anything or whatever. That's fine. That's the individual choice. And so it should be. But I think probably not in my lifetime. It might happen. It could happen tomorrow. But again, quite by accident, as ever, science will make the breakthrough, because the more they're experimenting with and investigating energetic vibrations and frequencies, the more likely it is they're going to start picking up things that they'll think, hang on a minute, what's this? Which is exactly what happens in Revelation. And I think that's fascinating. And I think the most exciting discoveries are still to come, without question. And the more we get into the whole nature of energy and what we are made up of. And after all, this knowledge is so young. You're talking the last, 70 years or something, where we've really come into this. So who knows what the next, if we're still around, 70 years could hold. I find it fascinating and exciting at the same time. I'm absolutely so excited by it and what could happen, because for me, it could have wonderful implications for how we live our lives. I think we've lost our way spiritually. And at the moment you look around the world, there's so much division, there's so much conflict, there's so much aggression. Of course, on the other side of the coin, there are a lot of good things that are happening. But generally speaking, where's the direction? Where's the one thing that's uniting us and saying, you know what, as humankind, we're all united. We're all the same. We should be caring for each other. We should be trying to live as good lives as we can. We should take care of the animals, the planet. It has immense implications for everything. And just as the ancient cultures understood that kind of spirituality and employed it in their lives, I very much hope that when science does make that breakthrough, it will have those kind of spiritual implications for people to think, yeah, I've got to live my life in a slightly different way. Now, there'll be those who say, hang on a minute, we've already got that. My religion believes that or whatever. Yeah, but they've kind of lost their way. Where's the direction? Where are the people actually saying, let's put this into practice and really spread it right around the world? Not from a point of view of one way is the right way, of just totally embracing all humankind. It's one of the reasons I don't call myself a spiritualist, funnily enough, although I am a spiritual medium. I don't like labels. I think labels divide us. I think, if you're not a member of my club, my politics, my religion, whatever it is, it just seems to cause division. I think we're all individual spiritual beings in this human existence for the duration of our earthly lifetimes. But actually, we come from spirit, we are spirit, we will return to spirit. And I think that perspective is it does make you kind of want to live your life in a particular way. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Nobody is. That's the nature of human existence. We all have our faults. We all have our different paths to tread. But I think, and I truly believe, that one day science will, probably by accident, make that breakthrough. And that's very exciting to think about.
Well, it's funny enough, actually, some technology is actually used today to help us measure EMF readings and different tools and technology we use out in the field paranormal investigating, like myself as a paranormal investigator, EMF reading, stuff like that, even though the energy that spirits give off is not technically classified as EMF, but the EMF reader is the only thing so far that can actually detect a presence of something, of a spirit that's in the room. The energy that a spirit gives off is recorded, or at least gauge in EMF. Now, but what the energy that spirits are made of, we don't know per se. And that's something that, but so far, it's just EMF readers that are meant for something else are actually picking up on a ghost and spirits when they're in the room.
Yep.
So there's already some technology used, well, not with the intended purpose of, finding ghosts, but have been used to help find ghosts and stuff like that. So we're kind of on the path. We just have to get the right minds in play to actually, look at this, study this.
And that's exactly it, Isaac. You've hit the nail on the head, because at the moment, the kind of investigating that you're describing is mainly done by people like yourself, paranormal investigators, etc. When mainstream science starts to come on board to really employ its huge resources and its experimentation and investigations into the nature of energy and everything, then I think we'll get much closer to it. And particularly once they get a sniff that they are actually onto something, then you can bet your dollar that they'll go for it, and something will come of it. So yeah, I think it will happen. As I say, may well not be in my lifetime, but you think of the incredible advances that have been made in the last 70, 100 years. What could happen? What could the discoveries that could come? And I'm glad you mentioned about, revealing things in a room, because that's what I'm often at pains to describe to people about the spirit world, because people like to talk about heaven and hell and all that kind of thing as if it's somehow one is up in space and one's at the core of the earth or something. No such thing. It's spirit are around and about us right now. It's why when people have near-death experiences or whatever, they describe it like just stepping into another room. And I'm at pains to often tell people just how natural it is and how close they are to us. And of course, a lot of the time, those of us who have pets, your dogs and your cats will pick up on it because their senses are far, far more heightened than ours. I mean, a dog's sense of smell alone is like thousands of times greater than ours. We can't even conceive of what that must be like. But they can pick up on spirit presence in a room. So it's not a huge step to say, well, hang on a minute, there's got to be more to this than meets the eye. And it's what really prompted me in my, probably when just before I went and studied my degree in philosophy, it was to discover more about the nature of our five senses, because clearly they are very limited, because you only have to look around the earth to see that there are creatures around and about us who have senses far, far more heightened than ours, that can see better or hear better, or like whales that navigate right around the world and return to the same bay every year, or bats that fly around in caves in their thousands and don't hit each other because of their sense of radar. I mean, there are countless examples of the animal kingdom, of how their senses are far superior to ours. So it's not a big leap to then say, well, hang on a minute, if that exists on the physical plane, let alone the spiritual plane, what more is there out and about and around us that we need to discover? And actually, we think that human existence with our limited five senses gives us quite a limited view of the world. And that's partly what we studied in philosophy, is actually saying, well, our view of existence is actually quite limited, because we already know there are other things far, far greater than us around us in terms of sensitivity. And I sometimes use the analogy of saying, if you've got a television in your room, if you switch the television on, the screen will be filled with vision, the room will be filled with sound, etc. You switch the television off, switch your medium off, and it disappears. Doesn't mean the TV waves aren't still in the room. They are. It's just that your medium isn't switched on to pick them up. And that analogy holds very true. So many things around and about us that we've discovered radio is the same. With wireless technology, X-rays, gamma rays, you name it. There are things, vibrations and frequencies around us the whole time, which just because we can't see them or hear them at any particular time doesn't mean they've suddenly gone away. And that analogy holds very strong to the spirit world. Just because a lot of people, most people, I guess, can't necessarily see or hear spirits or whatever in their everyday waking lives, doesn't mean they're not there. I fully accept that you don't have to accept it. And I always say to people, don't just believe it because I'm telling you. Far from it. I fight against any kind of dogmatic teaching like that. But for those of us who have had and continue to have those experiences, it's just a fact of life. It's like 2 + 2 = 4. It's as serious as that. It's absolutely, for me, it's a nailed on truth. And I love it. I think it's certainly enriched my life. It hasn't made my life a bed of roses. Far from it. I've had difficulties just like the next person. We're all going to lose people in life. We're all going to have ups and downs and everything. That's part of the human existence. But keeping a spiritual perspective upon it, recognizing that you're here purely to learn lessons and that your spirit is growing and it will take those lessons back into the spirit world and you will continue to grow there, I think just begins to make sense of it all, because otherwise it's a pretty crazy world.
I would say. You said, speaking of experiences, I guess what was one of your first paranormal experiences, or at least when it kind of tuned you into the fact that spirits are real, and then also that you of course, with your ability, you can actually hear and talk to them?
I think everybody has that ability. We're all born. We are spirits. We're born with that, but it tends to get beaten out of us at a young age and told that it's wrong or whatever. But for me, my earliest was around the age of 4 or 5. We lived in a very old house, my parents and my brothers and I, and I used to hear the spirit of a young teenage girl who had passed in that house quite a few years before. I think it may have been in a fire. I'm not entirely sure. But she used to walk. There was a sort of attic room, and she'd walk down from there. You could hear, well, I could hear, this was in the early hours of the morning, hear her steps coming down the staircase along the corridor, which was a bare wood corridor. It wasn't carpeted, past my parents' house, past my parents' room, past my younger brother's room, and come into my room. Whether she picked up that I was an empath or whatever, but that's what happened. And I was absolutely terrified. People think, well, if you're attuned to spirit, it's fine. Yes, over time, you get very used to it, and then you can embrace it, and you learn how to protect yourself against negative entities, etc. And it's great. But my first experiences, I was very, very frightened because I didn't know what was going on. It was very clear that this person was not of this world, as it were, in terms of human existence. She had indeed and continued to be human in that sense, but she was on the other side. She was a spirit. And that was my very first experience. And then later, as I got into my teens, I started to see spirits a lot more regularly. And by then I was beginning to open up to it and just accept it and kind of say, yeah, there's more to this life. And I'd always had this questioning part of me that I would say, I remember standing under the stars once with my father as a very young boy, probably around 6 years old, and asking him about the concept of infinity and what's beyond the stars and everything, because I just had that questioning mind. And of course he couldn't give me, and he just said, well, infinity goes on and on and on. And I thought, no, that's not good enough. That's not a good enough answer. I want something more finite. Of course, there isn't anything more finite, because our finite minds can't countenance what the reality of infinity or a continually expanding universe, which is one of billions of universes, etc., etc. It's kind of mind-blowing, let alone what's going on this little planet, and also what's going on in the spirit world and spirit worlds. So then I started to see spirits in my teens, had some extraordinary experiences, and then right up until, it's ongoing. It's like it happens to me now quite naturally. I'll tell you one very brief story. I've told it before. Beautiful musician friend who passed a few years ago from a brain tumor, a sudden brain tumor. Lovely, lovely lady. I woke up about, I don't know, it was about 3 a.m. in the morning because I looked at my clock, and she was standing by my bed. I was completely awake, 100%, and she was just shimmering there, beautiful, a huge smile on her face, and exuding just pure love, and just it was just one of the most beautiful moments of my life. And I tried to reach out to her and gently take her hand, but in that moment she disappeared. But just the incredible love and serenity and peace that she brought, and she was just smiling at me as if she was saying she's all right, and she was kind of looking over me, as it were. And when you have those experiences, I was fully awake, 100% fully awake. They are so profound. It's one of the most uplifting things that's ever happened to me in my life, because you just, after that, you think, wow, what can I possibly be afraid of? What can I possibly worry about? We all have worries. We've all got to pay the rent or whatever we have to do in life. We all have to get up and go to work. I have a very busy, full-on job. We're all chasing our tails, living our normal lives. But when you have something like that happen, you just think, wow, thank you. That's just incredible. So for me, it's very natural. I've obviously when I developed as a spiritual medium, and I did that at the very best place. It was the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain in London and I'm going back many years, over 30 years, with some of the best mediums of the day. You learn how to protect yourself and allow for spirit communication in the best way. So you protect yourself from negative entities, any negative influences, and you learn better, even though you may have natural talents and it may have been happening to you like it was happening to me since childhood. You learn how to open yourself up properly and control it and allow for that positive communication to take place, because it's not easy for spirit either to do that, because, as I mentioned earlier, the Earth's vibration is a very dense vibration, and we make it more dense by our actions, by the conflicts, by the negativity, by the aggression, by all the things that we put around us that create quite a barrier to that kind of thing being able to happen. So you have to learn how to really allow that communication to take place, and to accept that you want it to take place, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people are very fearful of it and everything for whatever reasons. Maybe it's their religious upbringing or whatever it might be, because it is out of the normal, as it were. But if you're careful, if you do it properly, it's the most beautiful thing. And I think embracing spirituality is something that is just so enriching, and you have the most incredible experiences, because if you want to allow good in, good will come. So absolutely nothing wrong with it. We're not dabbling with the occult or anything like that. It's our birthright. It's what all the ancient cultures perfectly understood, that spirit communication is perfectly natural. And always remember that when they come, like my musician friend not so long ago, they come with love. They come with immense love. They never come to judge. They just come with love and compassion and understanding. And they are just so serene and loving, and they never come to wag their fingers or say you're doing right or wrong or anything like that. It's just, it's just beautiful. And they never come to kind of lecture you either. They don't say, well, you should believe this or you should believe that or anything. We have free will, and they very much encourage you to use it. Of course, that means that we can come unstuck in life quite often because we make the wrong choices or whatever. But nevertheless, we have it. And they have that understanding, and they'll always be there to help if they can, to guide you. But you will make mistakes, and you will have what we call good luck, bad luck. They wouldn't see it as that. It's just part of life's experience. But they will always come through on a vibration of love. Many of them come through on a vibration of healing to try and heal people. What can possibly be wrong with that? And it really, really kind of annoys me that people will say, oh, you know, you're dabbling with the occult, or it's wrong, or it's evil, or anything. Absolute nonsense. Total nonsense. Yes, there are negative entities. And if you do, if you're not careful about how you communicate with spirit and letting things in, you can create attachments. Negative things can happen to you. There are darker energies around. We all know about things like poltergeists, etc. And there are places that I wouldn't go myself, even as a spiritual medium and knowing how to protect myself. There are still places I wouldn't go. Like there's a very haunted house near me, which is full of dark energy. I would not go there. I have been there, but I would not go there at night. There are people who do go there, ghost hunting at night. It's not for me, that, because I do know that you could pick up attachments, and there are some very negative entities there. So it's a very vast subject. The more you get into it, and the more you kind of learn, or the more knowledge you pick up, the more you realize just how vast it is, because it's beyond our human knowledge. It's just, we are only at the very forefront of learning so much about this. As I say, science is still very young in that. You're talking 100 years max of the kind of scientific investigations into energy, etc. Spirituality now, that's around as well. But actually, in terms of making advances on these fronts, we're still so young. There's so much still to learn. But yeah, Isaac, I've had so many experiences with spirit beings of all kinds. Some I've known. I've mentioned my musician friend, for example, but some, or many, I haven't known. But you just see them when you're in a particular place, or you pick up on them, or whatever it might be. And I've had that happen to me at one or two friends' funerals, where I've actually seen the person who had passed on, and I've seen them there, and that's a quite extraordinary experience. But that's how close we are to the spirit world. It really is a question of them living next door, as I like to think of it. It's just so natural. To me, it's just perfectly natural. But I've had a lot of experiences of spirit beings.
Well, that's interesting. From your perspective, how you see everything, which is very open to the entire idea of the supernatural, and that's what I like to hear. I don't like to hear closed idea to any possibility this could possibly happen. Because me and my wife, we're paranormal investigators, but we're more than that. And any of my avid listeners know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to my ability per se, and my wife, how powerful of a psychic she is. And I say that with all truth behind it, because it doesn't seem like anything she can't do when it comes to her psychic abilities. Remote viewing, channeling, looking at past lives, reading people's, help talking to spirits, helping them cross over, anything you can think of so far. She's like the jack of all trades when it comes to psychic abilities. But
that's brilliant.
Yeah, our encounter so far with the supernatural and stuff like that has led us a lot of information that we didn't really know, or at least we thought we did. And a lot of things that we still yet to talk about publicly with anybody. But when it comes to our investigation stuff we have done with that, we What's special about my team, and you'll find this very interesting, is that my team is unlike any other team in the paranormal game right now. Most paranormal investigators, there's three types. There's the clout chasers who are just looking to get famous from the evidence they catch. They're the actual, and then there's the other actual paranormal investigators who actually, well, they record, they document, they do that, but they're out there to prove that this world exists to everyone, and they are very respectful in their investigations when it comes to the spirits. But then there's mine. In my team specifically, we go to a location to wipe out all of the dark energy and then help any positive energy, spirit wise, cross over if they want to, because we've took away all negative energy. And we found that most places that have heavy amounts of negative energy, and it's also human spirits there at the same time, those human spirits are stuck because the negative energy is either keeping them in check or bullying them and not leaving. So once we remove that dark energy, all the spirits like to cross over. Not all. There's some who actually want to stay. Like, oh, dude, you got rid of the bully. I kind of want to hang out here now. I was like, okay, you're fine. You can stay. And then next time we come back to the same location, they may say, well, I kind of had my time here. Can I go? And we help them cross over. How I eradicate the evil, I'll talk to you after this, because I know that's probably intriguing enough. But my listeners know exactly what I'm talking about. But
that's brilliant. That's exactly you know that's where I'm at as well. And also, Isaac, I share your view that I can't be done with any dogma and people telling you, you know, you will believe this or you will believe that. One of the things that attracted me, and I know I've said this many, many times to people, but one of the things that really attracted me to the spiritual path is that when the guides and helpers come through, when you're meditating or developing, whatever it might be, when we were sitting in circle at the SAGB, etc., they would always say, look, if anything we tell you offends your reason, reject it. And I really thought, hallelujah, at last, because I've been brought up in a very conventional way, conventional church and all the rest of it in my very early childhood, where you were told this is the way things are, this is what you will believe, or you will burn in hell, or whatever it might be. And to be able to throw off those shackles and say, no, I'm a free thinker. I'm an independent spirit. I've got my own mind. I will find my own truth and tread my own path, and I will question and I will question, and I'll put everything under the microscope until I find what I feel is getting nearer to the truth. I think that's all we can do. We're all on that path, and I don't think anybody, and I certainly won't stand up and say I know everything, because I most certainly do not. But it's a lifetime's quest. But I'd rather be on that journey than a journey with a closed mind, where I just accept what I'm told, or accept things because they're written in a book, or whatever it might be. I want to question everything and recognize that the whole nature of life is progression, and we can't possibly hope to know everything in this human form. It's a bit like when I was asking my dad about the nature of infinity. We can't get our heads around that because we have very finite minds, and it's hard to we kind of have a glimpse of what infinity might mean, but we can't hope to nail that down and say this is exactly what we recognize it to be. And a bit like energy, we're still discovering so much more about it, and energetic vibrations and frequencies, which of course is exactly what my book Revelation is about, is the fact that because spirit exists on an energetic frequency much higher than ours, if a machine could pick that up, wow, what would that do? You know, if suddenly tomorrow somebody said, you know what, I can prove 100% that life after death is a scientific fact. Can you imagine the reverberations that would send around the world? It would be incredible. Not all of it positive. I readily admit there would be those who would find it very threatening or frightening or whatever, for whatever reason, because of their own upbringing or their own conditioning and what they've been taught. But I would hope that the free thinkers in the world, the independent spirits, those who are striving and recognize that we want truth, would embrace it fully and say, wow, yeah, give me more.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask. We on a tangent, but it's all good. I'll go to information. in our investigations, we've come across a lot of dark entities and stuff like that, demons being one of the most. But in your time as a psychic medium, uh, what has been your scariest interaction with a dark entity?
Oh gosh, I have had a few, and yes, they can be scary. They can. I think I would preface that by saying I have never been physically hurt by one. I know things like poltergeists can throw stuff around the room and that kind of thing. I personally have never been hurt by dark energies, but I do recognize they exist. I have seen a number, and they can present themselves in very unpleasant form. They can look, I have seen entities, for example, who are much, much larger than human forms, not necessarily in human form either. They take on, it's hard even to describe sometimes because they have it's not a form, but just a shape or whatever to themselves. Their faces, such as they are, and again, they're not faces in the way we would understand a human face, are extremely ugly and unpleasant to look at and exude very unpleasant vibrations. That's why I'm always protecting myself, always wherever I go, where I, particularly where I think there's going to be that kind of a presence. But you can't always do that because sometimes it'll come at you out of the blue, and there are things that I probably won't go into in detail here, but there are ways I will protect myself and combat it, which again I have learned over the years to do. And as I say, as a result of that, I've never, thankfully, been hurt. But these things do exist, and that's why I say, and I know you'll appreciate this, Isaac, particularly with the great work you and your team are doing, that if you go into this kind of study and you want to investigate paranormal activity, you do need to be careful, and you do need to learn how to protect yourself and tread carefully in that sense. But that's the negative side of it. The other side of that coin is absolutely fabulous. But then you could say that's the same as human existence in many ways. We have good and bad in our human world, and it's not too dissimilar. There are negative energies, no question about it, and you do have to be careful. It's not pleasant, as you know yourself, when you come across them, because it's just a whole feeling that you get. It's just the way they appear to you, that they can look extremely ugly and unappealing. They can, and it's the one thing I would say is, I won't say frightening, because I've learned to overcome that when I was much younger. Yes, I was frightened, but because sometimes they can be quite large in terms of how they appear. And I say how they appear because it may not be their actual format, but you could see, I've seen one, for example, that literally virtually filled the room, the height right up to the ceiling, quite wide as well, and everything. That's quite I don't quite know what the word would be, but it's upsetting, because you think, wow, is this thing going to harm me or whatever, because I'm just a small human being. So yeah, I'm just always, I'm very wary. It's why I say I don't seek it out. I know I'm sometimes invited to go on ghost hunts and things with people, and sometimes I've accepted, because the nature of why it's being done is very much as you've described, where you're going into to clear negative entities and also to release those spirits that are trapped, and help them onto the other side. But in terms of would I go to somewhere where I know 100% there are I don't like to use the word evil, but there are kind of demonic formats or energies there. I would tend not to go myself, because I just think when you develop as a medium, as an empath, or whatever you like to call it, there will be the negative entities do like to attach themselves, if they can, to you. They do like to get in there and create mischief. So that's my reason for steering clear. I know it's not because I'm special or anything, but I would be targeted, as it were, for negativity, because they could see, here's somebody who does accept we exist, as it were. Whereas other people might go in and be skeptical or not really convinced, or they're just out of interest or whatever. And it's a big area of understanding, because the more you open yourself up to spirit, the more they will come through. And in my experiences, thankfully, that's positive, because I protect myself and I open myself up to the beings of light and allow that to happen. But the flip side of that coin is you are opening yourself up. And that's why people who use Ouija boards and things, who may not be at all experienced, may not understand how to protect themselves, you can get all kinds of negative things happening to, especially when kids are doing it and they're experimenting and they think it's a bit of fun. And next thing you know, they're possessed or by something, or they're having really bad dreams and experiences, and things are flying around their room, etc. You need to treat this with respect. And I know you've used the word respect earlier on, Isaac, and it is so important. Treat the spirit world with respect, because there's good there and there's bad there.
Awesome. All good stuff. One of my, I guess, final questions, because I didn't expect this hour to go by this fast, but you are, you fill it with a lot of good information, Nick. I can say that much. Well, I guess a question I'll let you ask anyone who studies the paranormal, investigates, or anything like that. What do you feel that your purpose in exploring the paranormal is?
Fabulous question, because it's a question that rather annoyingly I ask myself and everybody else from quite a young age, is what are we all doing here? What's this about? Because I had this kind of I had a kind of absurd view of life from quite a very young age. I thought, what's we're born. Do we just live, die? Is that it? Do we go out to work every day, earn a living, and then peg it one day and that's it? It's all over. What was that all about? It's kind of, there's got to be a greater purpose. So yeah, investigating the paranormal for me, or becoming a spiritual medium and all the rest of it, was very much trying to find greater purpose to life and saying, okay, I'm here. Once I've recognized that I'm a spirit in the material world, and I recognized that, there's more to it, and I got my degree in philosophy and everything, I was looking into scientific developments, and I'd studied religions and thought, well, I can't find enough of the answers in there. There's a lot of good in religions, a lot of good, and a lot of them do wonderful, wonderful things around the world. But equally, it was never enough for me, still isn't. They don't see, I want to look forward. I don't want to look back to something that was written 2,000 years ago, because it doesn't give me all the answers. And so finding your purpose in life, I think, it's when you embrace a greater spirituality. For me, it begins to come into greater perspective. But it's not a great mystery. It's like just do the best you can. You come here with whatever talents you've been given, and we all have talents of different sorts. Try and develop them to the benefit of yourself, to the benefit of your family, to the benefit of others, and try and put back into the world more than you take out. It's, again, and I know I allude to the ancient cultures a lot, but they understood that. The Native Americans would never take out of Mother Earth more than they could put back in. If they hunted the buffalo, they would pray to the spirit of buffalo, and then would use every part of that buffalo, not just for meat, but for clothing, for sinews to sew with, etc. a very wonderful philosophy in many ways. And a lot of ancient cultures right around the world had that kind of innate spirituality of just trying to do good. Nobody was perfect. They used to fight each other like everybody else does in this day and age. But I think once you try and find the spiritual path, finding the kind of meaning to your own life becomes easier. Nobody has the ultimate key. I don't think anybody does yet in terms of what it's really all about. But if you do embrace the spiritual path, I think you come closer to it because you realize that there's a greater purpose. It's not just about going out, doing my job, putting food on the table, as hugely important as that is. And we all have to do that. But it's that spiritual perspective. What am I doing? Who am I helping? What's my greater vision of, can I leave this world a better place in some ways? Can I help other people who are in need? Can I show compassion and understanding and toleration and not be drawn into the kind of ideologies that seem to want to suppress people and control people and just steal land or destroy people, destroy animals for the sake of it or whatever it might be, destroy the planet, which heaven knows we're doing enough of that at the moment as well. What can we all do? And so that kind of greater purpose to life, for me, spirituality gives that, because then you realize that you're more than just the here and now. You come from spirit, you are spirit, you will return to spirit. And that surely has implications on how you see your life and how you want to lead your life. And I think if everybody found in their own individual way, it is purely an individual thing. If everybody can find that and say there is greater meaning to life, I will take the lessons I learn here with me into the spirit world and develop in the spirit world as well. If you have that greater perspective, it for me, it helps enormously. As I say, it doesn't make your life a bed of roses. I've had immense difficulties in my life, just like the next person. But I accept it because I realize that's part of the human condition. It's not meant to be. Equally, I've had a lot of joy in my life as well. That's part of it. It's part of the extraordinary kaleidoscope of life that is the human condition. But for me, once you recognize that spirituality, it does bring meaning, because you think, when I die, that's not the end. And I will live on in a different format. My energy will live on, my spirit will live on. And that gives me a purpose now to try and lead the best life I can. I fail miserably many times, but I try. And I think that for me, to answer your question, is what it gives me. It's like that perspective on saying, right, and at the risk of sounding like an aging hippie, peace, love, and happiness. Just spread peace, love, and happiness wherever you can. And if you can do that, then I think that's okay.
Awesome. Well, Nick, I appreciate the time coming and discussing this stuff with you. I'm probably going to have your back, because you're probably one of the most interesting people I talk to, and a lot of these interviews I've ever done, especially about your book and stuff like that. But where can everybody find you?
Yeah, well, firstly, let me say, Isaac, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and thank you very much indeed. And it's nice to be able to share my knowledge, because in many ways, a bit of a strange fruit, in the sense that not many people will have developed as a spiritual medium allied to the forensic skeptical subject of philosophy as well, and taken an interest in science and religion, and bringing all that together in one book. So it's and I'm on Instagram. People can find me there, Pease _Nick. So very simple, and I'm always happy to hear from people and communicate with them. And of course, Revelation itself is available you can order it from all major bookstores, or you'll find it online at people like Amazon and all the major online bookstores as well. It's available in Kindle format as well, if you want the electronic. So, and at the back of the book, there's a little piece from the author, me, where I explain some of the things we've spoken about tonight, Isaac. So I think it's nice when I get the feedback from people that they found it very thought-provoking when they've read it. Not just you can read it face value as just a roller coaster thriller, and that's fine. But actually, there's a lot of depth in there, and I hope people will enjoy that. So probably the best way to reach me is via my Instagram, Pease_Nick, and I'll be delighted to communicate with people and share whatever I can. I'll say right again, I'm not here to lecture. I'm not here to persuade anybody to accept what I accept or to believe what I believe or anything like that. I respect everybody's right to their own individual beliefs, and that's absolutely fine. But if you did want me to share my lifetime's knowledge in these things and you have particular questions or whatever, I will be very happy to hear from people.
Awesome. As always, you guys can catch us at Hidden the Shadows Podcast on Instagram, Hidden the Shadow 6 on Twitter, Hidden the Podcast 2 on TikTok, or links to all our social media, and always listen to us at hiddentheshadowspodcast.com. Nick, appreciate you coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Isaac.
And always, we'll catch your weirdos in the next one.